I don't believe I was born with the leadership skills. What you see today is a foundation built by a lot of bricks that were thrown my way, basically.
Well, hello, dear friends. It's your Javi here on another episode of Merging Minds, the podcast brought to you by BureauWorks, the AA-powered TMS. Today, as in every episode, I am thrilled, excited, and happy to be bringing you another human story of the localization industry. The friend who's here today, she's been on the podcast about a year ago. In these last 12, 13 months since she was last here, her life has changed and she's done a lot. I like to, first of all, the drum roll, sound effect, Wada'a Fahel. Hi, Wada'a.
Hi, Sophie. Good to see you.
It's great to see you again, right? Like, how have you been?
Great. It's been a while. I'm glad we are reconnecting officially in your podcast. Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, it's a pleasure because I know your life has changed and things that happened this last year. For those who are watching, Wada'a is a personal friend, a friend of the BureauWorks family as well. And she's always helped. She's always led. She always had a great word of support. I think it's worth for our followers and for those who watch the podcast to listen to her story or what's new in these last few months, right?
Thank you. I hope I'll keep it exciting as much as I can.
Yes. Let's keep it like that. And just for those who don't know you, who is Wada'a Fahel? Like just a quick introduction of yourself.
Okay, well, Wada'a Fahel. I hate talking about myself. Let's see. I'm in this business for about 20 years now. Led globalization strategies and operations for iconic brands like Harley-Davidson Motor Company and Zendesk. And recently, I took the big step and decided to launch my own consulting practice, Lokeverse.
Yeah. You're originally from Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken.
I am originally from Lebanon, born and raised in Lebanon, but then moved to the States about, oh my God, I'm old, 30 years ago.
Was it a love story or was it like, I'm going to immigrate? What was it? Like
graduate studies, but then you meet your significant other and you decide to stay.
So I've known you for many years since I started in this industry. And you've mentioned right now in your introduction that you've been an executive of globalization in iconic brands like Harley-Davidson, like Zendesk. But now you're an entrepreneur. You've built your own business right now. I love to share those stories because I'm jealous. One day I'll be an entrepreneur too. But what made you decide it was time to start something new?
So consulting is not new to me, or I'm not new to it, I should say. It really dates back to my days at Harley-Davidson Motor Company, where some industry colleagues would reach out for benchmarking sessions, and I would engage and provide some counsel. Did the same at Zendesk. So it has been on and off. In an informal way, engaging on some projects, whether operations, strategy, GTM, or building a team, or even reviewing RFPs and engaging in the process of assessing agencies. And I did enjoy that aspect of my work when I had a full-time job because it helped me break from the daily grind and engage outside of work with industry friends and colleagues. And then there's a sense of reward to it, right? Because you're helping and then there's closure and you move to the next project. So I started working on my website about a year ago, but I kept it in a draft mode because I had a full-time job and I had other things going on outside of the corporate world, my own investments and my own work. So I kept it in a draft mode, and I was recently in a certain position that wasn't on par with my qualifications or value system or what have you, and I was unhappy. And it's really amazing how being unhappy or unsatisfied in your role could impact your well-being and also your performance. So I would show up to calls literally disengaged, uninterested. Sometimes I would lose my words during a phone call just because I'm unsatisfied and I'm unhappy in the state of affairs. And then there was this one meeting that I had. At the same time, I received a notice from the company, the web development company that hosted my website saying, hey, your website is in a draft mode. Do you have a timeline? I was on that call at work and I got this message and I'm like, this is it. So I finished my call and I called my supervisor And I said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm moving on. I tried. This is not for me.
That's
Nothing
life.
against
That's the
you.
beauty of like illumination. Like fuck this.
Yes,
I'm out.
yes,
Like
something
guys,
happened
no,
that triggered it.
no.
When you need this nudge, you need this nudge.
Yeah.
Um, and it took a lot of courage and guts because, I've been in the corporate world, especially on the client and buyer side for 20 years. And
Yeah.
then you have this small job for a few months that you didn't really enjoy. But it pushes you to a point where you make this strong and bold decision. So literally, I didn't even give a 2-week notice, which was now in hindsight, I should have done this, but I was drained and exhausted by then. And it was around the holidays. So I moved on. The next day, I was working on authoring my website and finalizing it, literally. And I worked with my editor. And in 2 weeks later, it was ready to be launched. But I was still on the fence because I wanted to secure my clients first. Meanwhile, I had a couple of clients I've been working with steadily. And I thought that it was time to formalize things now. So I waited until I secured 4 clients between agencies and buyers. And I'm like, time to launch.
Yeah.
And I launched it last 2 weeks ago.
So 20 years of a globalization executive career, that's a long career. And I can imagine when you're building that type of career, you start from this, then the next step, then the next step, and then you get to a point that's like, hey, I'm doing it, I'm making it, right? And then this experience, this enlightenment, let's call, happens, and you're like, okay, let's leave this all, let's go somewhere else. And then a life in which, hard work and stress, of course, and lots of stuff, with a great salary, with benefits, etc., is there, and suddenly that all is gone. What is the first thing that a new entrepreneur coming from that position has to unlearn to get used to that new
that's
life?
a very good question. So if I were in that same situation in that company 10 years ago, I would have been a little bit more careful. I wouldn't pull the plug and move away that quickly. And you know me, I'm not a quitter. I've lasted, in various positions for, at least 6 to 7 years. But I'm at a point in my career where experience plays a major role. So I have that. And also, I have been smart in my investments, I would say. So I invested outside of, the full-time job in a way to have some sort of a passive income that allow me to pull the plug on a corporate FTE type of a position anytime. And I was ready to make that move because I could afford this risk. Now, obviously, if you're in a situation that is very tough professionally, but at the same time, you don't have backup financially, especially when it comes to benefit, especially if you have children that you need to put through college, then I definitely don't recommend doing what I did. But it was a very well calculated move.
Okay.
And trust me, I lasted. Like I wanted to leave this work after the first week on the job because we are at a point in our career where you can sniff failure a mile away. And I saw all the signs from the first week, but I decided to move on and push through and make a change because this is who I am, right?
That's totally a bold move. That's totally a bold move. I appreciate. I mean, I'm as I told you before. I'm jealous. I have never done that step, and that's something that I admire from people. Although your ass was covered, so to say, because you had other type of income, etc., etc. But just like mentally, from being an executive to, hey, I don't have this anymore. There's gotta be something that is like, wow, right?
You have something better. You're a founder and a strategist and a consultant. And it gives you a sense of satisfaction when you're working with agencies and clients that actually value your expertise, and you can see it during meetings. You can feel it during interactions. You're actually working with people first that you like because you have the opportunity to also select the clients that you want to work with. There's a sense of pride too, and a sense of appreciation because these individuals, leaders in the industries, we're talking about C-staff and E-staff level folks that I work with, and they reach out to me, they value the expertise, they appreciate the expertise, and they look at you as a thought leader and a counsel. So to me, this is priceless. And it drives you to do better and invest even more time on this type of work. Now, it has its own challenges because it's not stable and steady, right? It's up and down, up and down. There are weeks where you are averaging 60 hours a week, and there are weeks where there's nothing going on because you are on a holding pattern for something else to come through. But then it's word of mouth, right? And this is how you grow your brand. Now,
and sorry to step in there, but you mentioned it, word of mouth in our localization community, not industry community, to start a business is the number one thing. Like
all of my clients have your word of mouth.
Yeah.
All of my clients have word of mouth. So
and if you salesperson are watching this and you're starting your own business, there's no formula to the Coca-Cola. There's no magic formula. The formula is word of mouth.
Word of mouth, and also, building credibility, be, on par with what the client is expecting. Be very careful with how you draft a framework and how you draft a proposal to support their needs. And to me, honesty and integrity come first. So if a client comes to me and they're looking for something specific, and I know that it's out of scope for me, I'm very honest about it. I would say, thanks, but it's not my core competency, but I'm happy to refer you to X, Y, and Z who might be able to help. I think in consulting, integrity and credibility are front and center. I work very hard on maintaining accountability and honesty as a top priority.
Mm-hmm. And what is like Lokeverse? What is the core problem that is solving?
So Lokeverse is the combination of 2 decades of my experience in one space to support agencies and clients in an AI-charged environment. And what I mean by that, the impartial view that the clients and agencies are looking for to be able to break through this period that is raising anxiety across the board. So it's not just on the agency side of the business. I see it every day also on the client side of the business. So whether you're a client looking to establish a globalization capability or get it under control because it grew out of proportion and it needs to be centralized, this is where I come in and support with the centralization of the tech and operations, or even reviewing the RFP process and identifying the right partners, because as you know, I've done this throughout my career, building a multi-vendor network, also providing them with an objective view of the landscape and the lay of the land and where they could do better, because clients, just like agencies, when they are working daily, they're not focused on all of the blind spots that could be beneficial. So by bringing this objective and impartial view, I'm able to identify areas that could unlock better opportunities for the client from a localization perspective. From the agency standpoint, as you know, there's anxiety in the industry right now with AI. Breaking through the procurement firewall is a challenge. Visibility and how to come across as a differentiator is a challenge. And I bring the client point of view.
It just took you 60 minutes to mention AI. That's incredible. Just 60 minutes of 50 minutes of record. That's incredible. Like you've been a record. And the mission and the value and the proposition and the core issue or thing that Lokeverse is solving is a very modern and advanced way of working, right? Nowadays, you with your 20 years of executive experience in globalization, how can you go from the Lokeverse perspective and go to an executive in a company, whether it's a big language service provider, a tech company, or an enterprise, and explain them, hey, globalization is still needed today and more than ever. How can you do this? How do you do this?
Well, to be very honest, I didn't have to do this because so far, the clients are coming to me asking for this type of expertise. So there wasn't a situation where I'm trying to help them to get or earn executive sponsorship or budget. The executive sponsorship is there. The sphere of influence in terms of who makes the decision on localization is there. It is optimizing the workflow and the process, integrating AI. And sometimes some clients just want to validate that what they're doing is sound. And this is where I come in and bring in an objective point of view. Now with agencies, they're craving the client's point of view. Why buyers buy? What am I doing wrong? Why I'm not breaking through this RFP? Why I'm not as visible as the other agency, although I have a solid foundation, I have better services and I have better tech. Why I'm not being visible? So these are the areas where I dive in, look under the hood, and work with the LSPs, LSIs, or software companies to help them have a change management mindset and look at their content and also their value proposition and narrative from the client's point of view. Because what's in the industry.
And what's a clear example on one of the latest cases that you found? Because Like, I believe everyone is struggling with the same trouble right now, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
everyone on the services side, on the provider side, wants to sell more, and they're like, "What the hell am I doing wrong?
Yeah,
Why
I
am I?
think
What is? Can you name a recent example
yeah,
that you have to help? Like,
there's
okay,
there's one yeah there's one prevalent situation or a common thread that I identified across all of the agency side of the business clients. And I touched on this a little bit in the video that I launched last week, Hafi. And it has to do with chasing the same type of clients and the same sector. And we all know what it is, it's technology. And I understand it because this is where the money is, this is where the executive sponsorship is for budget, this is where the funding is all going away. But there are a lot of sectors, hidden gems, with an amazing future ahead that are being left behind. And
for
some
example,
agencies and some LSPs are highly qualified to earn that business just because they have a certain certification or because they are in a certain geographical location, or maybe they have a tech feature that is not available with another agency, and that would give them a competitive edge. The challenge is that when all your focus is on a certain sector and on the same type of clients, you're leaving this revenue and this missed opportunity on the table.
yeah, and I get it because it looks like we're all after the same customers, so to say.
Yeah.
That's right, and there's a lot out there, and there's a lot. But the problem here, and I would say, is maturity, right, of understanding. Like, I think we're used to selling to those companies who have an understanding of the value of what we're giving. Although the cycle of sales might be longer or more complicated because there's always a vendor that is in. At the end, you say like, "Oh my God, it's easier to talk to somebody that understands what I do than just going to a startup who has raised $100 million and has to go into 75 different languages because they have no freaking idea of what it is about, right?" Like,
That's a good point.
yeah,
I would say it has its pros and cons.
yeah,
When you're working with a client who understands exactly what you're doing, it also has its own challenges because you're going to be challenged continuously.
yeah.
And sometimes, internal people can take a chunk of your business as an agency.
Yes.
But when you're working with not a startup, let's say a company seeking localization support, you will come across as a thought leader. You'll have the opportunity to establish yourself also. But there's an extra effort needed in mastering the narrative, how to speak with clients who lack localization and globalization background and help them navigate internally with C staff and E staff and procurement to get budget and executive sponsorship. And
When a
I have a
big
solid
problem
track
you have,
record of doing that.
when one of the biggest problems you find within teams is managing up, and this is one of the things, managing up, which is like going to your executive and telling him, "Hey, dude, we really need this," right? Like,
No, I've done this happy for 20 years at Harley-Davidson. It's a Midwestern company.
yeah,
Where I was pretty much the only one with an accent in a 3-building compound. But I had an executive sponsorship for a $6 million budget because it's all about the narrative and about presenting the need in a digestible manner that makes sense and focus on the value of the work and avoid the localization jargon. Focus on how localization is not a cost center. It's part of your cost of customer acquisition. It's part of your growth strategy, your GTM strategy, and present it that way. I think this is the greatest opportunity in the industry. The challenge is that you have a lot of talented localization managers who know what they're doing exactly on the technical level. But when it comes to managing up and narrating properly and presenting numbers and the value of the work, that requires a lot of coaching and nurturing. And this is what I have been doing with some of my clients too.
I'm personally not good at numbers, not at all. At talking, I think a little bit better, but at presenting numbers, I might not be the best. But anyway, like I would find my way through with narratives and here's what I ask you about one thing that I really love about what you're bringing into the table with Lokeverse right now, and it's like you've mentioned it, like storytelling,
Absolutely.
a storytelling to manage up, right? Like to
Yeah.
go to like, okay, so here are the things that this and that. Here's the, and I was discussing the other day with a friend of mine, and we were on a call, and he was like saying, like, oh, I need to go harder on storytelling, and and I need to tell my story. And I'm like, well, you're starting wrong already. Like if you are going into and you're going to apply a storytelling narrative and methodology to sell, to communicate, to create new relationships, the first thing you've done wrong is already say that you are going to do it, because this is a little bit like,
it's not organic or natural. Yeah.
No, this is correct. And there's an example that I always come up with when I talk about this thing. Is like the Star Wars example, right? If you go to Star Wars, you would look into Luke Skywalker as the hero, right? And naturally, you as a consultant, as a vendor, as somebody that's in the team or whatever that wants to pass some idea, you would present yourself as a Skywalker, who is the savior of all the universe. While that's the mistake, you should present yourself as Yoda, which is the guy that is helping the person in the center, which is Luke Skywalker, to become the hero who is meant to be. Am I right?
That's a great analogy. Yep, that's a great analogy. You're not there to shine. You're not there as a consultant or as an entrepreneur in this area of the business. You're not there to shine or to outshine your client. You're there to guide them.
But what can you tell me a couple of examples on ideas you've shared and you've sort of like pushed through storytelling?
Certainly. Now, for trade secret purposes, I cannot name the client or provide specific examples, but my approach is also nurturing. So if, let's say, one of my clients had a panel and they needed to be included on it, and there were specific questions that they needed to answer, my approach is never to go in and say, okay, here are the questions, here are the answers, here's how you're going to answer the questions. So the first step in the process, I ask my client to fill up their answers how they thought they would answer the questions. And after doing that, I review the answers and I sit down with them and I will coach them and nurture them on how they will be perceived if they answered it this way, and how I would expect as a client and as a buyer to have the answers. So that's my approach, and it worked well. They were appreciative. My client was appreciative when this happened, because they were working with a big shot tech company, and they were part of a multi-vendor network. So again, instead of just providing the easy way out and saying, yep, here are the answers, as your consultant, I did the work for you. My goal is to nurture and to elevate the speech and to evolve the mindset. So next time they receive the same questions or they're invited to a different panel, the mindset has shifted and they're going to pause and think about the client as they're trying to answer the questions.
So you've become not only a growth consultant, but an empathy consultant as well.
I mean, word of mouth matter. And if I'm getting more clients, that means that I'm doing something right.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. When you're having those discussions with executives at a high level, at which point do cost savings, AI, and all these things come in the conversation? Which moment?
At the forefront. At the forefront of conversation, how can we leverage AI to save more money or to come across as a differentiator and what have you? And it's not a magic wand. This is not going to happen overnight. So my approach is to present my clients with a framework. So after sitting with them and identifying the opportunities and the challenges, the first thing you want to do is to actually write down your understanding of the challenges. Assumptions represent a big mistake in consulting if you assume. So my first step in the process after digesting the challenges and the opportunities is to write down exactly my understanding of the current state of affairs or what the client is going through. And as soon as I get a thumbs up, this is where I present them with my roadmap, whether it's going to touch on sales outreach approach or the tech stack or the workflow, or maybe they have a strong foundation, but they need better integration, or the change management on the team. Like, what do we mean by embracing AI? What type of tools are you doing? And this is, by the way, a topic that I'm going to touch on with my video in the next couple of weeks. What do we mean exactly by embracing AI? So all of these things come into play when we're working with executives, and I present them with a framework. And upon sign off, we kick off the work. It could be an engagement that ranges from 4 weeks to 6 months.
Yeah. Wow, incredible. And that requires like really, from my understanding, really strong leadership skills, Wada'a, and you have them. But most people, no. I don't know if I've known you for 10 years. You've been in the industry for 20. those leadership skills. I know them from you from the very first time I met you in a Taos conference 10 years ago.
Thank you.
Were you born with them? Did you develop them? Was it a mix with, like, what kind of advice would you give anyone that is listening?
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words, but I don't believe I was born with the leadership skills. This, what you see today, is a foundation built by a lot of bricks that were thrown my way, basically. And you learn and you move on and you continue to grow. You make mistakes. You get up, you learn from your mistakes, lessons, never, no regrets. And then all the pieces all of the sudden come together. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. And I was a leader back then, but things changed. I think the mindset evolves, the technology around you, the environment changes, and you continue. You either decide to remain stagnant and not grow, or you evolve with it and you keep challenging yourself to continue to learn more, to make mistakes also. Even now during consulting, there are times where I go back and say, oh, I should have addressed this in a different way. Development, Hafi, is endless. Grow, but I think the number one priority is to acknowledge that we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect in this specific space, and we need to continue to learn and make mistakes.
And to just jump and do things. You're right. You're right. I think I agree with you in that regard, right? And it's where it makes me think of also like a little bit the imposter syndrome, when you're like, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? And then at the end, you're doing it without you realizing, right? So
small wins. You know, you make mistakes, it's true, but your growth is not only contingent on mistakes.
Yes.
We are, as human beings, we are impatient. We want fast results. We want to be at this level without climbing the ladder step by step. But the reality is, small wins lead to a long-term compounding effect. All of these small wins combine together. So I think the biggest lesson I learned throughout my career is patience. Be patient and take the time to make mistakes and take an effort to understand exactly where the gaps are, and maybe you're lacking in this certain area and you need to improve it. And then at some point, all of these pieces will come together.
In a world of today in which everybody wants results now, patience is the great advice one can give now, right?
And resilience, because it's very easy to go into a dark place with the current state of affairs and in the industry.
Big time. Well, I could be speaking with you for 3, 4, 6 hours, and we will go get a coffee, a drink, or whatever. But I think we need to start closing the interview. And recently, I started doing what I call a Spitfire round, which is like I ask our guests 5 questions that need to be answered with 1 or 2 words. Right? Are you ready for it?
Oh God. Okay. Let's go.
Here, they're going to be super easy. So, Slack or email?
Slack.
Which book would you recommend most?
Hidden Potential, as of today.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Oh, I'm a morning person. I'm the 5 a.m. club.
I'm completely opposite. I was, when I was in university, I would only study when the sun goes down. Sorry, it's my impossibility.
Well, I mean, age. If you ask me this question 20 years ago or 30 years ago, absolutely night owl. With a glass of wine, too.
One tool you can't work without?
Pencil.
A pencil?
Yes. I'm old school in that way. I like writing down my notes and my tasks, and I like the sound of the pencil.
Oh, that's nice. And the best advice you've ever received, can you remember it?
The best advice, hearing is different than listening.
Oh, interesting. Okay, since I've asked you this one, I'm going to give you the best advice I've ever received. And it was in a moment where I was like in high levels of anxiety and I didn't know what to do next, whatever. And I was worried about growing up and going above 40. And that's the moment where you see life as an endless thing, as an ending thing, right? And then my mentor back in the day told me, you know the Latin quote, memento mori? There is another one that is the opposite, memento vivere. Remember that you're alive and that you're here.
Absolutely.
So
stay grounded.
Yes, indeed. And I was like, wow, incredible. Anyway, don't want to be too inspirational, but I wanted you to share your journey, what you're doing nowadays, your new experience. Wada'a, thank you so much for being in the podcast. It's a
It was a
pleasure.
pleasure at all, as always.
And to all of those watching, until the next episode of Merging Minds, goodbye, friends. Peace.